Good morning to you, everybody. This is Kyle Speed One coming to you from the workbench. Yeah. Today I thought I would address, because it's something that I'm currently doing regarding the slot cars on my Carrera racetrack. And this is a piece of the said Carrera racetrack that I painted up and tried Boone's detail of adding stonework to the pavement. But yeah, today I thought I'd talk about the Carrera track and your slot cars. Now, most of the time, people don't even pay attention to equipment that is on their slot cars. And what I'm pertaining to is, in this case, the brushes that are installed on your guide, and what I suggest that you do to lessen the amount of your rails getting dirty and oxidized through a electrical slash, I don't really want to say like chemical, but I guess in a way it is a chemical reaction through electricity on the rails of your slot car track. These are where the brushes from the guide goes down through the center, and your brushes make contact here and here. Okay? So if you overturn some of your slot cars, you may have two types of brushes on them. Copper, which looks like this. Okay. Copper in its rawest form. Or you might look at your car and see this. Okay. It's silver in color. And what has been done here with this particular brush, it's copper braid, same as this one. Some of them may be all, I doubt it, but you know, the old brushes may have been weaved into this way for a brush for a slot car with actual silver. But that may be the very, very, very old slot cars, if they had that type of brush on there. Anyway, the thing is, through science and chemistry, when you apply electricity to metals that are making contact with one another, you'll either get a reaction from what I call two dissimilar metals. In other words, in this case on the Carrera track, copper and stainless steel. Okay. I looked it up on the internet a couple years ago when I started doing this, and Carrera claims that these are stainless steel, which, for those that know, stainless steel resists corrosion. It doesn't mean it can't get spotted or, you know, something like that, but it depends on the grade of the stainless steel. Now, these rails, they claim that they're stainless steel. I think it may be a mixture, because some of the stainless steel that I've come across, some weren't magnetic. That's a magnet. And it is thoroughly attached to those rails. Okay? If you want to keep, in other words, long story short, if you want to keep your rails as clean as possible without the black corrosion, I guess, chemical, electrical reaction to dissimilar metals, and you have this type, whether it's steel or stainless, I suggest you go with the silver or the tin braid brush. Okay? Your rails will stay a lot cleaner if you go to this brush here instead of leaving it copper. Because if you look at the copper, and this is one that I pulled off on one of my cars, a lot of times, yeah, there's an example right there. See that dirty look on the braid? I don't know if it'll focus or not, but you can see how it's shaded. It's dirty. That is from literally two dissimilar metals making contact with the rail. You don't get that, if not much, if not none at all, when you use this tin braid. Okay? So what I've been doing is I've been going through my car collection and all of those that have the copper brush braid on the guide, I've been swapping them out with this brush. And I've been using this part, tin plated copper braid. And that's the part number to it. Slot it. Okay? And they come in different thicknesses. In this case, I'm using 1 millimeter thickness braid. And it works fine on my track. It, you know, a lot of my cars have had a good reaction to swapping out over to these tin braids. Now, over a period of time, I'll tell you, over a period of time with these brushes constantly making contact with the rail, you may start seeing where the tin gets worn off and you actually start seeing the color of copper that comes through. It's the same as rubbing it on sandpaper, okay? Even though these are fairly smooth, you still have the gaps here where the track connects to one another that brush is going to fly over and snag in some cases. There is an air gap there somewhat, and you'll start seeing copper show through the braid. In that case, you have a choice to make. You can either take you some more tin braid and cut you out some new brushes and install them, or you can keep running it like it is. I mean, it's up to you. As I said before, that dissimilar metal reaction that causes this dirty look, these are going to get dirty too. Okay? And you'll find if you take a white cloth, soft cloth, and start wiping down these rails, you'll get a black film just like that from the copper braids making contact with the rails on the slot car track. Now, for the other bit of information, on some of your slot cars, now this is a racer sideways and this is a fly, and I believe this is an SCX. Yeah, it's an SCX. There it is. Okay, you're going to find that some of your slot cars are configured differently on the way that the brushes attach to the guide. This one, made by Racer Sideways, excellent little car, good performance, great detail. For me, they're right up there with Fly as far as their body detail and their wheel detail. But you're going to find that there's several different variations of guides and the way that the braids are attached to the guides. All right, so here's the Racer Sideways. If you look down at the guide, you'd have to have better light than what I'm showing you right now, but what you're going to find is inside here is a grub screw. It's a little Allen grub screw. They're really tiny. Keep a magnet nearby, because when these little boogers get lost, they stay lost unless you step on one when you're barefooted. I'm telling you out of experience. I don't have any carpet in my house, so most of the time I'm able to find what I'm looking for by taking a magnet, if they're not made out of aluminum or some alloy that's not magnetic. I can take a magnet on a stick and move it around on the floor and find most of the dropped parts. You'll take a Allen wrench and install it in the grub screw, back it out. Then what you're going to find is when you gently pull this wire out, that the manufacturer has soldered a section of the bare wire, and it's poked down into and around the brush. All right, so once you've done that, you can then remove your brush and install the brush of your choice through the slot that's provided in the guide, and reverse from the disassembly to your assembly. You'll stick the brush in, leave a little bit of height to it, stick your wire from your motor back into the brush area, and grab your Allen wrench. Where'd it go? Grab your Allen wrench and that grub screw, and carefully install the grub screw back into the guide. When you start feeling resistance, some believe tighter is better. Remember, you're dealing with a metal grub screw, hard, and this black plastic. So if you go too crazy on it, you might actually split the plastic in that guide. And you don't want to do that, because then you'd have to buy a new guide. Okay, so this is one variation of how the brushes are. Welcome everyone, and welcome. Oops, I didn't mean for that to happen. Anywho, that's one variation. Okay, so I'm in the process of changing these brushes out on some of these cars, but I thought I'd take the time and explain things to you, and the variations with some of the ways that the brushes are attached to the wires from the motor. Okay, now this one here is made by Fly. or in this case GB track, which is the same as flat, and it's running copper brushes. You see those two dowels that are sticking out from in front of the brush, and they're hollow on the inside, right? Well, that's because they actually use, I can do this one-handed, they actually use this setup. It's a little eyelet, and the wire is shoved through the eyelet. Now, 9 times out of 10, they'll skin this insulation back far enough to where you can twist the wire into more of a tighter rope, slide it through this eyelet, and when it comes out on the other end, bend it back against the eyelet and then install it into your guide. See that slot? That's where the brush goes. And in this case, let's see. In this case, it's already fallen out. Okay. You see how it's bent? See how it's bent up like that? This section here, where my fingernail is out, is what actually goes up inside that slot of that guide. Then it's kind of a balancing act, or a contortionist act, where once you have the brush pushed through far enough into the slot of that guide, you're going to have to take your finger and bend over the rest of the brush against the guide plate here and hold it in place while you take a pair of tweezers or needle nose pliers and install that eyelet back in there. And you can see how right there it's got kind of like a half hole to it. That's where that eyelet goes. The brush is pressed against the flat part of that slot, and the eyelet goes into that half round hole. Okay, and that keeps your brush in place. That's one of the ways that they attach brushes. Now, the third example I want to show you is just another ways and means of how manufacturers choose to attach brushes to their guides. Now, this is the SCX. I don't know if you can see it. See that copper, shiny copper poking out from underneath the chassis? It's got a tab on it that is bent at a 90-degree angle that makes contact with the other side of this brush. And the guide is slotted. I don't know if I can show you that clear enough. It's not wanting to focus. Hang on a sec. There's 2 slots in that guide, and there's the flat section here. This is all one piece of brush, and you see how that flat piece is on the underside of the guide where the copper tab makes contact so it can power the motor. And you've got these 2 slots, one there and one there, to stick the brush through and then bend them back as designed. Okay, These can be a little bit of a hassle. I've had some that go together real quick and easy, and I've had some I've had to fight. like a 12-pound bass. Things may vary for you. So there's your 3 examples of brushes and how they're attached to the car, to the guide. And I've already explained about the reaction of dissimilar metals against the metal rails. Now, the same is true if you're, for instance, on a wood track. And I would say, you know, it's up to the person with their own track, on a wood track, on what they're going to use for supplying power to the slot car, okay? 9 times out of 10, most of the time, they use a copper, thin copper strip, and they'll glue it in place. Most of them have a backing on them that you peel off, and you just carefully run the strip where the guide brushes are going to make contact, okay? As you can see here, there's a certain distance between the slot for the guide and the rails, and you'll have to make that measurement if you're applying that kind of wood track tape down onto the surface of the track. Now, again, in that instance, you want to use similar metals, not dissimilar metals. If the tape on a wood track is copper, then you're going to want to use copper brushes. They'll still get dirty just because of the electricity over a period of time. But if you put a silver braid on a copper taped wood track, you're going to get the same reaction of 2 dissimilar metals, is basically what I'm trying to say. And if you're all right with that, and you don't mind running a rag across the rails, a clean rag across the rails every once in a while on your racetrack, then keep what you got. I am doing this for my own benefit because I'm aware of these problems, and I don't plan on changing my track to any other track. Now, there's some tracks that, like in Carrera, run the stainless steel brush contacts, and there's some out there, and you have to research it for yourself, that these may be made out of steel. Okay? And if that's the case, then you have a higher degree, depending on where you live and the humidity inside your garage or your shed or inside the house, that you'll start seeing corrosion build up from oxidation of the moisture that's in the air. Okay? And you'll have to excuse me, you'll have to keep coming back and cleaning your rails. And you have to be careful about what sandpaper you choose to use, because if you use too coarse of sandpaper, you're just going to make scratches. You want to use, something like 1,000 grit real fine, like the wet sanding sandpaper. You might even use steel wool. I suggest you look it up on the internet. If you've got some of the tracks or a track manufacturer and they've used steel instead of stainless, then you need to research what the rails are made out of and make your decision accordingly. Okay? And so we're up to 25 minutes yammering about brushes for the guides. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Please remember to like and subscribe if you wish to do so. Again, I don't make any money off of this channel. This is for my pleasure and for viewers' pleasure and information on some of the things that concern slot cars. Okay? So y'all have a great day, and I'll talk to y'all later.